Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this Bengals training camp report presented by Medical Mutual. I'm Dan Hoard alongside former Bengals offensive lineman Dave Lapham. And as you can see in the middle of the screen, we have a very special guest today. He's in his third year with the Bengals, his seventh year in the NFL, and he is one of the best defensive tackles in the National Football League. It's great to have on DJ Reader. DJ, thanks for taking a break from the lunch period to join us on this training camp report. At this time last year, you were coming back from a serious quad injury. You had a
Yeah.
great year. The Bengals were the fifth best run defense in the NFL. You were a big reason for that. The team went to the Super Bowl. How personally gratifying was last year for you?
Oh man, it felt good. Especially when an injury happens. You have those doubts in your head of whether you're going to be the same player and if you're going to be able to do the same things. And fortunately, I was around a bunch of guys who believed in me. So it felt really good. Just to have that playoff run and do the things we did, accomplish the things we had done. We were 31st in the league the year before in the run, and to come back, have a good year, everybody buy in. It was amazing to me. It felt good for me personally, and I know it felt amazing for the team.
DJ, you were the first targeted veteran player in free agency that really good people that can play football at the highest level. And, it changed the culture. You were one of the first guys to change the culture with this organization. You talked about how the defense played in the playoffs. 10 quarterback sacks, uh,
Mhm.
7 people come up with 8 interceptions because of the pressure on the quarterback. And it all started with stopping the run like you talked about. But boy, how much better can the defense play? You hold 2 opponents to under 20 points your first 2 playoff games. You guys were just on such a roll.
I think a bunch of guys out there believe in each other. We're in the same process of establishing that belief now. Everybody has came to work, so I think the sky's the limit on how good we can play. We know there's another notch to go get, and I think everybody in the locker room right now is hungry to go get that.
DJ Joe Burrow was back at practice yesterday,
Yeah.
albeit just as an observer as he comes back from his appendectomy. I know he was in the meeting room on Saturday. What did it
Mhm.
mean just to have his presence back at practice yesterday?
Oh man, you always want your leader back. He's the toughest guy in the league, in our opinion. So, we love to have him back, have him back in the locker room. His move's just always good. You always see him working and how just into it he is in the game, especially a guy who's in year 3. Just understanding the game, what he sees. He's locked in. He's talking to the other QBs and things like that. You always want that presence out of your starting quarterback, the guy who's leading your team.
DJ, as we can see in some of the practice footage, no shoulder
Yeah.
pads. And today's the first day that the big boy pads come on. And
Yeah.
obviously, obviously up front with the offensive and defensive line, that's where the rubber meets the road now. You find out who really is a player. You think a guy might be able to play, but it's dummy football as such. Now the real football starts. But how important is it to learn how to practice the right way?
Oh man, it means the world. You don't want guys out there getting hurt and just understanding what they got going on, how to field blocks and things like that. Because if you went out there with nothing and then you started out today, it'd be just a bunch of people out there flying around, flying into each other, just trying to hit something. So I think it's good you get those first couple of days of acclimation. Guys understand how to practice, how we go about it here, and I think today's gonna be exciting though. I'm excited to see a lot of the young guys. I know I'm excited to get some pads on. My shoulders were a little bruised up from no pads and hitting on each other. So I'm excited to see myself. And then a lot of the young guys, I'm excited to just see them juiced up and how things go today.
Well, let's talk a little bit about those young guys. The Bengals drafted 2, Zach Carter and Jeffrey Gunter
Mm-hmm.
this year on the defensive line. You've got 2 defensive linemen from last year who couldn't play due to injury. They're back now,
Yeah.
Joseph Osai and Wyatt Hubert. What have you thought of these young guys in general, and has anybody in particular really caught your eye?
Oh man, they all doing great. They just understanding the game, getting down what this game's a little bit faster, but also realizing you got time. There's 11 guys out there fighting the same battle. Everybody trying to get the same thing done. So just trying to establish that with them. But we're blessed, man. A lot of these young guys, all the young guys on our D line, especially, they're just wide open, ready to learn. And they go in. You can tell they look at the install the day before. You never got to re-explain things to them. You just got to kind of clean things up. So it's been nice to see them. You know, they've had a couple good days and they've strung them together. They definitely chase the ball. That's one thing they're big on. They're running hard after the ball. So I'm excited to see what they got going the rest of camp, man. Really excited to get to that first preseason game and see those guys get out there and show out.
This defense is put together so well. You're stout, solid, strong in the middle, and then you got suddenness on the edges. You have versatile, athletic linebackers. Then on the back end, there's so much speed back there. And like you talked about, everybody's running to the football. This defense is fast. I mean, when you guys had the little work against each other on Saturday, the low red zone and other defensive situational football scenarios, you guys showed so much team speed. You excited about that?
Oh, super excited. And then, we feel like red zones are a thing. We can give up all those yards in the field, but we feel like when our back's against the wall, that's when we play our best ball. We know where the end zone's at, and we're trying to get it done. Felt like last year we were one of the better teams in the red zone. And, this year we want the same. We want to make some plays out in the field and get those things done. We don't want to let them get there, but when they get there, we got to make sure we do a great job of keeping them out. It's our job to keep them from getting points on the board. And we want to end every drive in a kick. So it's fun seeing those young guys fly around, the way they communicate on the outside. The guys in our DB room, seeing they did a play on Saturday where Cam jammed the outside receiver, Buki came over top. It was just to see young guys do that, it got me excited. And, I'm not a person that really gets excited over just normal football plays, but to see how aggressive and how fast those guys are reacting and flying around is fun to see.
Final question from me, DJ. Yesterday, Trey Hendrickson said he hasn't watched the Super Bowl yet, and it might take him 5 to 10 years before he feels like he can watch it. What about you?
Bits and pieces if I'm at like a bar or something or eating food with my family, but I know I haven't sat down and watched the game. No, I haven't. I feel like I can remember every play that happened in my head and how the game went, especially on that game. It's just, that's just a rough feeling. I don't know how long it'll take me. I think after we win one, maybe I'll watch it.
And final question for me, sir, is Lou Anarumo is kind of like the mad scientist in a science lab. He's got all of these athletes, all this multiplicity, all this versatility. I mean, you guys are going to drive offenses nuts. I mean, they're going to be like, what are they coming up with now? Who are they going to play? Where are they going to play them? What are they going to do? It's going to be crazy.
Oh man, I love Lou, man. He and especially being a back end coach, he works with those guys a lot on disguise and demeanor, and that's what he talks to us the most about. Just demeanor, how you play the game, how you show that you're doing something that you're not. If you're blitzing, how you show. If you're not blitzing, how you don't show. He does a great job of just talking to those guys about demeanor and how you play the game, and then he puts us in great positions. We always feel confident every week that we go out there that we're in the best position to make plays. And he puts a lot on us, but he expects a lot, but he coaches a lot. So it's not like he's just expecting a lot and then asks us to do something that he's not coaching. He does a great job of, and all the coaches do, of just explaining this and being real teachers of the game. So it's great to play in that defense. I know that sometimes I might be here, sometimes I might be there, and I get to play around a little bit with what I'm doing. And he doesn't coach robots out there. He lets you be a player. So I've just really enjoyed it these last couple of years, just being out there with him and getting to pick his ear about certain things. And I really love how aggressive he is, honestly. We get in games, and if we're doing something, if we're 0 in that game, he's rolling on the 0, and I love it. You love for your coach to have that confidence in you. So I think that's big for all of us as players, just the amount of confidence he has in us. Even, we were in 4-12 the first year. He still had the same amount of confidence. And last year coming back, he ramped it up even more. And this year, he's put it all on us, putting a lot of stuff in camp. And it's just been fun. It's been real fun to see him grow as a coordinator and the trust he has in us. And then, just the way he talks to us, the way he loves us up, but also coaches us hard.
Well, we know that Lou feels blessed to have number 98 in the middle of his defense. We appreciate your time. Best of luck for another great season and another healthy season.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it, y'all.
You're the man, DJ.
All right, that is DJ Reader joining us on this live Bengals training camp report. We've been talking about the defensive line lap. Let's transition and talk about defensive backs. The Bengals have some talented young defensive backs in this training camp. They drafted 3 this year, obviously, including their first-round pick, Dax Hill. With Jesse Bates still out, and the Bengals hope that he'll report for training camp sometime soon. But with Jesse out, Dax Hill has been the safety taking his spot with the starting defense.
Yeah, it really has. And we're looking at Von Bell here, the veteran, who's kind of the steadying influence, the steadying force back there. I mean, he's the guy that all the young players are looking to on the football field if they have a question, to get the answer and to get the correct answer. And in conversations I've had with Von Bell, he's very, very impressed. The type of questions that the rookies are asking. A lot of times you can get a feel for how well they're understanding what's being installed by the questions that they ask. And there's no such thing as a dumb question, but there are smarter questions. And these guys are asking very, very intelligent questions, according to Von Bell, if there is any confusion at all. So they all seem to be able to, comprehend and be able to adapt on the football field as needed, when offenses change things and change looks. There's going to be mistakes. There's no question about it. But the key is you can't have the same mistake over and over and over. It's just one mistake, correct it, move on. And if it comes up again, you got to do it right. And that's what separates, good players from being great players sometimes. It's just the mental aptitude for the game. And then the physical traits, Dan, I mean, we've seen it. All of them can run. And when you've got that type of speed, and like we talked about before, it is translated to functional football speed. There's straight line track speed, but in football, you got to zig and zag. You got to sink your hips. You got to get it in and out of cuts. You have to do a lot of things from a movement standpoint. Sometimes that track speed does not convert to functional football speed. Well, these guys have the body types and the skill sets within those body types to translate it to football. And that's really exciting because there's no substitute for team speed. And I think the Bengals defense going to have a ton of it on the back end for sure, Dan.
All 3 of the defensive backs that they drafted ran sub 4.4 40-yard dashes. But I've also been struck by how solidly they're built. Dax Hill is a long, lean athlete. He's only about 191 pounds. But Cam Taylor-Britt and Tyson Anderson are both 200 plus and powerfully built for defensive backs.
They are. And, when you have that size speed combination, that ratio, that's advantageous, you can do a lot of things with them. And you say, okay, well, can I play 3 safeties? I'm sacrificing in the running game. Well, some of these guys are stout enough and physical enough, to come down in the box and to tackle people. So that's the thing. The way offenses are put together now and structured now, everybody is spreading the field and, putting people on islands. Well, so you have to be able to be athletic enough and fast enough to cover people if you're stuck in that one-on-one situation. But if they do, decide, okay, now we have to hunker down and bring the formation in tight, and we're going to pound you a little bit, and you may be in a situation where you can't substitute personnel, that player also has to have the skill set, the diversity of skill set to be able to get closer to the line of scrimmage in the box and tackle people, get off blocks and tackle people. So like you said, somebody that's put together has got something to him, some substance to his structure, and still can run. Now you've got something pretty unique, and it is going to be very interesting how, Lou Anarumo, okay, am I going to go 3 safeties with two corners? Am I going to go 3 corners and 3 safeties in my dime package? When I go 7 defensive backs, if I have to, I feel good enough with my safeties that I can put them in there and let them play, quote, linebacker as such if they feel they need to run the football some. So that diverse skill set is something that's very, very appealing and intriguing matching up against these offenses of the NFL today. That's for sure.
As you noted when we were talking with DJ Reader, the full pads go on today for the first time in training camp. By rule, in the last agreement between the owners and the players, the first week of training camp is not in full pads. You can start doing that in week 2. My question for you is, how much of a difference is there? Because it's not like there's no physical contact in the first week of practice. There is. but is it a huge difference beginning today with the full pads on?
Yeah, it is. I mean, the only time I experienced no pads was in like rookie mini camps and off season. It'd only be like a long weekend kind of thing. And like DJ said, your shoulders would be pretty sore at the end of it because you were still banging a little bit, even though they tried to control it as much as you possibly can. But now, particularly in the offensive and defensive lines, it's called, thump drill, and it's full bore. You're coming off the football. You're bending your knees, you're rolling your hips, you're snapping those hips, and you're coming off the line of scrimmage and trying to hit people and finishing blocks. Thing is, you're not tackling people, you're not taking the running back to the ground. But this is where, offensive and defensive lines really grow together in terms of, all right, well, what does it feel like full speed when I run an end tackle, stunt, twist as a defensive lineman? What does it feel like when I'm working with my tackle and I'm running a combination block against this defensive end and linebacker, that double team and rubbing off to the next level, getting a feel for who's going to be the guy that moves to that next level. And, as a defensive lineman, how you're going to penetrate and twist, how tight you can twist around your teammate, all of those kind of things. They seem like they're, like little nuances, but that's what separates the great play, the attention to the detail and all the nuances of those details. And that's when you can really pick it up a notch or two when you're in full pads for sure.
Let's move to a different position group and talk about the wide receivers a little bit. The Bengals obviously have one of the best trios in the NFL in Chase, Higgins, and Boyd. But after that, you've got guys fighting for jobs. You figure that Mike Thomas and Stanley Morgan are probably pretty safe. Thomas as the fourth receiver, Stanley Morgan for his great special teams play, and Mike Thomas has been good in special teams as well. But Puka Williams, number 12, Trenton Irwin, number 16, among the candidates battling to make that roster in training camp.
Absolutely. Lassiter's in that mix as well as a bunch of others. And it's going to come down to, Puka or Lassiter. Who's going to win the punt return job? Will either of them win that punt return job? Trent Taylor has been very efficient in that regard. He's in the mix. So you're exactly right. I mean, the determining factor will be probably Darren Simmons. How many special team snaps will this fourth, fifth, and sixth, and if they keep seven, the seventh wide receiver, he may not be active on game day. And then which ones are we going to bring back to the practice squad? Because once they clear waivers, if they're not picked up by another team, they can come back to the practice squad, and there's 16 players on that practice squad. It's a vitally important, feeder to the roster for sure during the course of the season in the National Football League. So these guys are fighting for their professional lives. There's no question about it. And the fact that your base defense around the NFL is turned into like nickel, and then your sub-package defense is dime. That's fewer linebackers on your roster. So if you only have 5 linebackers and you have 6 or 7 wide receivers, those wide receivers and defensive backs, you're going to have probably more defensive backs and wide receivers than just about any other position group on your game day roster. Those guys have to be able to perform on special teams for Darren Simmons. And which one of these guys will be performing the best? Here they're going through receiving drills, and this is basically, what you do when it's hands. Your defensive back has his hands on you, and he hasn't turned to find the ball yet. You got to get your hands off him and make a play on the football. That's the little drill they're doing there. This one's very interesting. The blind over-the-shoulder catch. I mean, that's unbelievable. You take that for granted. That's hard to do. You have to locate the football just by looking skyward, not turning your head and turning back to the quarterback. That's an interesting skill set there too.
Trenton Irwin had a great training camp last year. It carried over to the preseason, and he was obviously with the team on the practice squad and then activated for certain weeks during the course of the season. T. Higgins, as you can see there, has not been taking part yet in 11-on-11 drills as he comes back from his shoulder surgery, but everybody expects that to happen sometime soon and for T to be good to go. Let's move to the tight end group lap. Everybody's been talking about number 88, Hayden Hurst, the free agent that has played previously for the Ravens and Falcons, former first-round draft pick by Baltimore, and he's having an excellent camp. As Tyler Boyd said yesterday, he was shocked by how athletic and fluid Hayden Hurst is.
Yeah, he is an outstanding route runner. And, it's sinking your hips and then being able to get in and out of cuts without rounding those cuts off. You want those cuts to be as sharp as you possibly can. That's where you create the separation. Fred Biletnikoff, is a guy that probably ran no better than 4.6, maybe a 4.7 40 at wide receiver, but he had, guys that were running 4.4 or 4.5, a defensive back that couldn't cover him because of his ability to get in and out of cuts very, very sharply and very, very crisply, not rounding them off where a cornerback, has time to make up the ground that he lost on that cut. And these guys all do it well, and Hayden Hurst does it exceptionally well. I think he's as good a route runner as some of the receivers are, and he's a bigger body guy. He's a 6'5" plus, 250-ish pound, guy that will be a real weapon. I mean, that's a tough matchup right there. A big body guy that runs good routes and can catch the football. That's going to be a very interesting dynamic and when you talk about, like you said, Dan, the three wideouts the Bengals have are as good as there is in the National Football League. And I think an unwritten story at this point in time is Hayden Hurst. How much attention will defenses have to pay to him? If he's out there as the only tight end, and then the three receivers, are out there, and there's one running back, and it's 11 personnel. He could be a huge, huge factor. The Bengals have good receivers out of the backfield. Joe Mixon, Samaje catches it well. Travion Williams can catch it well. I mean, you can't cover everybody, or you can't double everybody, I should say. Somebody's going to eat. And I think Hayden Hurst is going to get his share of the meals.
And on that note, we will wrap up this training camp report. We want to remind you that the Bengals will practice today beginning at 2:15, obviously free and open to the public. They have tomorrow off, and then we'll practice again on Thursday and Friday starting at 2:15. Their first preseason game is just 10 days away, Friday, August 12th. It's at Paul Brown Stadium against the Arizona Cardinals. For Dave Lapham, DJ Reader, and our entire crew, I'm Dan Hoard. Thanks so much for checking out this training camp report presented by Medical Mutual.